I'm Naben Ruthnum, the Crimewave columnist for the National Post. Today we're going to be talking to Nick Cutter and Andrew Pyper about their latest books. They're about to kick off their Dark Side tour, which will take them across Quebec, Ontario, and BC. Polywogs are interesting creatures, Clayton remarked. No other amphibian undergoes such a massive change as it becomes an adult. Humans have a few more bones as babies, which fuse together as we grow, but we don't grow new arms or legs, or lose any part of our bodies as we mature. Humans, he said with something approaching sadness, are boring. This passage from the deep is about the protagonist and his brother. It's a flashback. The protagonist's brother, Clayton, is sort of the mad scientist of the book, and he's discussing his feelings about polywogs, an undersea creature, similar to the undersea setting of the deep, and humans, and which one he finds more interesting.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that polywogs are all that interesting. It sounds a lot like science to me. Is this a book full of science? I think The Deep has a lot of science in it. So if you like science, you'll probably like that book. The Damned has no science in it, and actually very little serious thought. So I think my book actually trumps The Deep on that level. But again, polywogs, if it's a book about polywogs, I don't know. Count me out.
An endless view that improved the higher we went. Below us, the river and the stubby skyline of Windsor on the opposite shore, and beyond its limits, the rest of Canada. Vast and flat, fading out before reaching the horizon, as though a landscape painting, abandoned for lack of a subject. The Damned is mainly set in Detroit, but we do get this one glimpse of Windsor when the character first, spoiler alert, dies in the early pages of the book.
Okay, one thing that probably is, it's funny that Andrew set his book in Windsor, or in and around Windsor in Canada, is people don't know this, but Andrew, the dirty little secret is Andrew hates Canada, and he hates people in Windsor, and he ultimately would probably rather move somewhere else. So if you want to support a Canadian-hating writer, then I think The Damned would be a book that you should enjoy.
It exited my elbow with torturous languor. Its legs, tiny and black and covered in oh-so-delicate fur, slit the top of the flesh hill. It pushed itself out slowly, its body coated in dark pus, a tumor releasing itself from the flesh. This very juicy passage from the deep is from the diary entry of one of the undersea scientists who the main character is sent down to investigate. It's pretty gross.
Okay, first of all, when I heard "oh so delicate fur," I thought this was a scene about a kitten. And I love kittens. I think you love kittens. I think everyone loves kittens. I also love Canada. That last slander will just not stand. Windsor, so-so. But nevertheless, Canada I love. Kittens I adore. And then the scene turns into something quite different. It's not a kitten. That's not a kitten coming out of that person's elbow. I think you should know that. It's a far worse thing. It's gross. It's sickening. I feel sick. I have to be sick.
Ash peeled the skin off her face to reveal the soft tissue below it, the hard cords of ligament and muscle. Kept dripping until there was only bone, until her body was no longer visible, and she was nothing more than a white skull floating in the hallway's darkness. In this passage from The Damned, we get one of our many glimpses of the main character Danny's dead sister Ash, who's a very un-Patrick Swayze-like ghost who haunts him throughout the book.
All right, you talked about my book, you know, being too scientific. That sounds like it's out of an anatomy textbook. Plus, on top of it all, is this Margaret Atwood writes fiction? You know, horror fiction? Literary fiction and horror fiction don't mix. You gotta go for pure on gore. This literary fusion doesn't work for me. Sorry, Andrew.